Hey folks, BlackCross here, and welcome to another collect video. So I kind of decided to finally do this, and it's going to be a little bit weird trying to make this video, but bear with me as oh boy, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. It's a little bit different than what I would do with my video games. My video games are a little bit more organized. I actually have like an app feature thing that tells me about my game collection and stuff like that. So I don't have to worry about that specifically. But the Funko Pops, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. So that's going to require a little bit of a breakdown thing, to which I've actually done that. I finally decided to count and calculate, because we tend to make fun of the fact that I have over 100 Funko Pops. So I decided to finally count them. Yes, I finally decided to count the Funko Pops, which is something that I've never done before. Because I was curious too. I was like, how many do I actually have? So let's do a quick calculus real quickly as to like what is included and what is not included. Let's talk about the stuff that's not included. The stuff that I wouldn't count as like the main Funko Pop stuff, because that gets a little tedious to kind of see how that would work and stuff like that. You have 4 Pez that Delamar recently gave me for Christmas. You have 2 keychains that I've had. 2 technically dioramas, because that's what they are. They're basically a scene which contains 2 Funko Pops. And in this case, it's the Star Wars and then the Witcher 3 game. So those 2 dioramas I would not technically count, because then people would argue and go, oh, well, there are 2 Funko Pops in each diorama, in which case, let's just not include those, because it makes a little bit of technical complications. We then have the 1 House Funko Pop, which I guess you could count the Mickey Funko Pop, but then again, you also would have to count the house as well. So I probably wouldn't count that either, just because of the fact that that would be like one on its own. So I wouldn't count that technically. Then you have the 2 big Funko Pops. I've only gotten 2 big Funko Pops, and I know technically they come in even bigger sizes. And I'm like, okay, if I ever wanted that, it would be something that I really like, you know? It'd be something kind of like either Kingdom Hearts-esque, or maybe even a PlayStation theme type thing, you know, like either, I don't know, Jak and Daxter. Just saying, Sony, you've released Ratchet and Clank and Sly. Where's my Jak and Daxter love, okay? Let's see that. But yeah, the only big one that I've seen, the one that's bigger than what I've got, is the Batman one. And I like Batman, just not as much as I used to, so I wouldn't get that. So exclude that. But so if you exclude all of those, include the individual main ones, whether they be bobbleheads, whether they be slightly bigger than any normal Funko Pops, the grand total Funko Pops that I have, technically in terms of like actual classifications of a Funko Pop, being a single figure and it be moderately sized, there is a grand total of 101 Funko Pops. We can finally end the joke! I mean, technically we can still continue it, because technically it is over 100 Funko Pops. Just by one Funko Pop. So, we can finally end the joke here and just proceed on with our lives, shall we? Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna just end it right there, obviously. I want to talk a little bit more about the Funko Pop collection itself. Rather be, what my ideal of, like, what a Funko Pop that I would want. Like, some of my favorites, you know, some of my personal favorites. And then, of course, what Funko Pops I'm wanting to get that have been made. And Funko Pop ideals that I want to throw out there in case Funko happens to be watching this video and be like, that could be arranged type thing, you know? If they ever did any of the stuff, that'd be awesome, but I don't know if they would. I don't think they're the type of people who just randomly get suggestions, because at this point in time right now, I think they're comfortable where they're at, where they just try to make Funko Pops for like promotional purposes, you know, to try to sell them real quickly, and then every once in a while make exclusive looking ones that most people wouldn't recognize, you know what I mean? Very few in between. So the type of Funko Pops that I normally go for are basically Funko Pops that I generally enjoy. You know, they're either from a franchise that I love, from a particular movie that I love, video games, anime, anything genuine that I have a genuine interest in. That's the particular Funko Pop that I normally collect for. So that's why when you see like the collection itself, you'll be going like, oh, well, he has a lot more Kingdom Hearts stuff. And that is true. I do have a lot of Kingdom Hearts, but that is because of the fact that I am, in fact, a Kingdom Hearts fan. So therefore, of course, any Funko Pop that they've had of Kingdom Hearts, I would like to get. Obviously, I don't have all of them. And ordinarily, I wouldn't get like the Tron variants or the Halloween Town variants, because I've got like a bunch of different variants of frickin' Sora, Donald, and Goofy, so why do I need extras? But my friends have gotten me those for Christmas in the past, / birthdays, and I was like, you know what? I'm happy I got them, right? You know? Just add them to the collection. Oh, dear Lord. So it's one of those things where it's like, if it's something that I generally have an interest in, I definitely would get them. It's a matter of like, you know, when do I get them, when they become available, and if they're relatively priced, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, for example, some of them I have gotten from Walmart, and, you know, with me working in Walmart and stuff like that, you know, anytime we get a new set of Funkos come in and stuff like that, I'm generally curious to see what they've got. About 9 times out of 10, there's usually a Funko that I don't care much for, but every once in a while, I'll see, like, a Funko that I'm like, wait a second, we carry that? You know? For example, the 2 times where I'm just, like, generally surprised of, like, huh, really? You know? So the first one would be, like, obviously the Wallace and Gromit Funko Pops. I was sincerely surprised that we were going to get those, because Aardman Animations, you wouldn't think would make Funko Pops, but because of how well known Wallace and Gromit is to the genuine audience who knows of their animation style and stuff like that, next to like Chicken Run, of course, they would recognize them for like Wallace and Gromit. Some would even be more obscure to recognize Creature Comforts, but they would be first to recognize Wallace and Gromit. And so I was just very surprised that they would actually get Wallace and Gromit made in the Funko Pop line, which is awesome, you know, because I love them. And then, of course, the other one that I was surprised was Seinfeld. Seinfeld is this 90s sitcom in which where Jerry basically tells kind of like a parody story of his life, you know, as a comic and stuff, and just him and his friends kind of get into shenanigans and stuff like that. You know, the best way to explain it is that it kind of goes alongside with how Season 4 explains it, where it's basically a story about nothing. Nothing major happens, there's no story plot or anything like that, it's just random events that happens, you know, in the day-to-day life of Jerry Seinfeld and his friends. Which is cool, but, if you're wanting to watch that, be advised, it's not gonna be for everyone. It's not gonna be for everyone. You're either gonna be offended by it, you're gonna be either disgusted by it. I wouldn't say it's raunchy, it's more of not safe. It's not safe for anyone, so just be advised, depending on who you are, this may not be for you, and I completely understand it. Even its humor is slightly hit or miss. I definitely love the first 5 to 6 seasons of Seinfeld. I haven't seen all of them, you know, like up to season 6 I remember the most and stuff like that, but then after season 7 onward I have no idea of, so I would like to eventually someday dive in to watch the rest of them. I just haven't got around to actually sit down to do that, you know, you think about it, 9 seasons of a show, do you watch all of them? Actually, I'm sure I know that answer. The majority of you would say, yes, I watch all of my seasons. Which I'm surprised. There's a lot of seasons in some shows and stuff like that. Some going on to 25 plus years. What the frick, guys? But yeah, those two, I was surprised to see Funko Pops being carried at Walmart. You know, yes, you would see Marvel. Yes, you would see Star Wars. Those are kind of like the big hitters series that people would recognize and be into and stuff like that. Pokemon would be like second in line, and then like any other lesser known stuff, I believe there's like a couple of Hamiltons that we've got. WrestleMania is another one. There's just a whole bunch of different Funko Pops, but there's like certain ones that I like that I want to be like, yeah, I want to get that or whatever, you know what I mean? Certain ones that I like, and I've kind of had to put a pause on my collection because I have no room. I have no room in my Funko Pop shelf that I have technically designated, but it's not fully. Let me show you what I mean. This is currently what I'm working with right now. This is my Funko shelf, and unfortunately, as you can see, it doesn't hold all of them. I mean, I could get rid of all of that, but, you know, other stuff that I want to keep and everything like that. But the majority of the Funkos, they're not displayed well. Could be better, but at the rate of my Funko collection, I don't have enough room. And some of them I've kept in boxes in order to, like, make up room for it. So naturally, it's a little bit hard to hard to collect whenever you have no space at all, like zero space whatsoever. I've also got these right here, so yeah. That's kind of the shelf that I'm working on in terms of Funko Pops and stuff. I would like to change it up and make like a full-on shelf of Funko Pops, like custom make it myself in a way that would display them better and stuff, because right where they're at right now, it doesn't do a good job. It doesn't. It's a shelf that holds stuff, you know, that's the best way to describe it. It holds the Funko Pops. I can occasionally look at them. Every once in a while, I can rearrange the figures to kind of look at them better and stuff like that. And I know some people will be like, well, why don't you put them in boxes and stuff? Well, if I did that, I have even less room, you know? I mean, you look at my collection as it is, and I have zero space to where I could put anything in. Yes, they do make specialty shelves to where you could place like a Funko Pop in like a solo corner and stuff like that, and that would fill it up and everything. But to me, I like to look at it, you know, kind of hold it in my hand and just kind of look at it and stuff like that, and just say like, yep, I still like this one, you know? Just all the different ones that I love, I just want to have them, you know? And that's what the collection is like. It's just basically having them and stuff. But I wouldn't say that I would be the same way if they had stayed a certain style. For a long time, you know, years ago, Funko basically started their line, and they were kind of standardized, you know? You know the pose if you've had them and stuff like that. Some of the earlier ones and stuff. And they're not very... I mean, I guess in today's standards, they're very iconic, but they're not, like, very likable, if you will. You know what I mean? Like, imagine having, like, a Wallace or Gromit looking like thing that looks like that, and it doesn't stand out well. There are certain characters that do well, like Superman and Batman, but then for, like, other specialty characters, they look at them and go, yeah, probably not. You know what I mean? You can only do a standard for so long, and then eventually it just does not work for the collection. It does not work in terms of that. But compared to what they've done years later then and stuff like that, they started to be more likable. They are a lot more posable. They're a lot more different. You know, they're a lot more unique. And that's what I like about them. I like the fact that they try to make them more unique, make them more different. For example, I didn't think I would have more than one Deadpool, but I do. I have more than a handful of Deadpools, I will say. So there's that. So I mean, it's nice that they actually stopped and look at their product line and be like, they're not selling quite as well. What can we make them more likable? Instead of just having it be a character. Let's pose them in some way, right? And then they started posing them, and then all of a sudden that started to increase their revenue and be like, oh, okay, I see. Now, obviously, I've heard that they haven't sold as many, mostly because they've got, like, hundreds and hundreds of freaking, the child from The Mandalorian. They've got hundreds and hundreds of, like, Pokemon and stuff like that. Which, I mean, I guess if you have, like, over 10 million Pikachus and 10 million Grogurs and stuff, I think, yeah, you wouldn't sell nearly as many as you would hope you would sell, you know? You can only sell so many of a certain character before, yeah, you just can't sell them anymore, you know? And I guess that makes sense. It makes sense that you kind of need to make room for other figures that you're going to make and stuff like that. And I know some people may feel a little disheartening that some of them are being dumped and stuff. But as big as Funko has gotten over the past few years, what are you supposed to do with them, right? You got an inventory that's not moving, so you gotta do something with it. But for those that do work or happen to be near one of those places that being dumped or whatever, they could get lucky and be able to have them, you know? That's just how it is. Okay, now let's talk about some of my personal favorites, you know? Some of my personal favorite Funko figures, you know? My favorite Funkos out of the collection and stuff. So let's kind of go through them and see what I've got and what are my favorites. So let's talk about this particular one Funko Pop that I have that happens to be the very first Funko Pop that I've ever gotten. This is not only the first one, but this is also one that's kind of personal to me, and that is the Dude Funko Pop, the Dude from The Big Lebowski. So I first started watching that, like, I want to say 8-9 years ago, probably almost 10, just because, you know, I've heard like Nostalgia Critic and other people talking about it and stuff like that, you know, talking about how good the film is. And it is a good film. It's a really good one. It's one of my personal favorite films that I enjoy and stuff. And there's not a lot of stuff that has been made specifically for The Big Lebowski. You know, you got a few posters, you got a few t-shirts and stuff like that. But really what I want is like some kind of statue or something that stands out as The Big Lebowski. And they've never really made one that stood out to me until my younger brother Delmar gave me the Dude in Funko Pop form. And he's like, I know you're not big into Funko Pops and stuff, but I figured this looks really cool as it is and stuff. And I figured, you know what? I get it for you. And he's right. I did enjoy this. I love this to the high heavens. And I'm so glad that I've got this one. And technically, this is the one that got me started in collecting in the first place for them, you know? Just to see how different they look. This is still kind of somewhat standardized in terms of like how the Funkos look somewhat, but it's in that form of where it started to evolve the brand itself. And for me personally, I just love how it looks. It's so cool looking. So let's go ahead and continue on through the collection, but before we continue it on, I want to show you these two particular Funko Pops because the brand that they're technically from, I have no interest in. I have no interest in playing the game that they're technically on. I believe either both of them or one of them is from DOA 2. And then the other one's like Heroes from the Storm or something like that, which are basically like League of Legends type gameplay style. I may be completely wrong, I do apologize, but I have no interest in the games themselves. But I will say that I love their Funko Pops. You know, this one right here, I don't know the character's name, but I love the design of this one. It's so cool looking. It's got like this Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth kind of design look to him, and I just love how it looks. I love this one. And then this is another one, and it's freaking badass. Like, out of all the Funko Pops, this is like the most badass looking Funko Pop that has ever been made. This is like freaking cool. He's got like a dragon flame sword that he's holding on, and then his armor is just so cool. He's like a beast-looking creature. This is so freaking awesome. Again, I have no interest in the games, but the Funko figures that they made for these guys is just so flippin' cool. And it's kind of hard not to acknowledge how cool and designed that they are. They're just really cool looking. I love them. So this one I have found, I believe I found it in a shop called Lunchbox. Every once in a while I stop in there just to see what they've got. Unfortunately, they never have shirts in my size, so I usually just stop looking for shirts. In terms of Funko Pops, they have some good ones. This was one of the ones that they had, which is Baymax. It's Baymax, in which where he's kind of like that scene where he's like low on battery and deflating, and he's kind of acting like the random drunk. And he's got the little cat, the fat little chubby cat, and he's just like, Harry baby, Harry baby. This is what I collect. This is the stuff that I go for in Funko Pop. Just stuff that are just like either a few seconds long or just something hilarious that they have done and stuff like that. And they make them into a Funko Pop. Like, I saw this and I went, I have to have this now because of how cool and cute it is. Every single time I look at it, I just think of that scene and I just can't help but laugh at it. Because again, it's just a random ass scene. But I love it. It's so cool. It makes me happy. Now, I don't have a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean pop figures, to which they've made quite a bit, actually. I do have the Jack Sparrow, probably not the most recent one, if I'm not mistaken. But I do have one, and there's actually one other one that I wouldn't mind where it has him without his coat. I wouldn't mind having that eventually. But there was one other one that I wanted to get, and technically, if I'm not mistaken, you can only get this when you go through the ride itself. And that is the Jolly Rogers Treasure Funko. This is so cool looking, and it literally shouts the ride of the Pirates of the Caribbean. Not just the franchise of movies, but the ride itself, the original ride. And this is just so cool, you know? I mean, look at all the different treasure textures that it has. It's got some jewels, chests, and swords and stuff. This is just a cool looking Funko Pop. I love the design of it. Like I said, I love how it looks, and I wanted to get it so badly. And I got it for Christmas one year. And again, it's just so cool looking just to see it. It's really cool. Now, aside from, like, I guess in terms of, like, when this video gets released and stuff like that, and depending on how the future looks, this is, like, the second most expensive Funko that I've got. And I would argue and say, up until one other figure, this one I would classify as, like, my most expensive Funko Pop that I have. And that is General Grievous from Star Wars Episode 3. Some would also recognize it from the cartoon animated shorts and stuff like that they've made, but most people would recognize him mostly for the Clone Wars, as well as the third film that he's in and stuff. And General Grievous is like my favorite side villain. He is an awesome looking droid slash creature. He's technically a cyborg, in which where he's partially a creature made into a machine. Like, he has actual human bio organs and stuff like that. He has like a big lore thing that I could go on and explain, but the biggest thing is that he's just a cool as character, a cool as villain. This is kind of like somewhat my second most expensive one. I want to say I paid like $45 or something like that. I cannot remember how much I paid for this, but like I said, I wanted to get this one because I love General Grievous, and I'm glad I got him. Also, he's a bobblehead. Now, let's talk about the most expensive one that I technically have. This is the most expensive Funko Pop that I have in my collection. Until I actually get a closer look at all the other Funko Pops and average their prices. Because then I'd be like, ew. But keep in mind, I paid base price whenever they were released and stuff like that. This one was given me as a Christmas gift. And at the time, I knew how much it technically costs. And that is the first Gabriel Iglesias Funko Pop. Now, I don't keep a lot of their boxes. I will say that much. I don't keep a lot of their boxes. But for like certain ones, I definitely would. And Gabriel Iglesias would be one of them. I don't know if I'll ever be able to see one of his stand-up comics and stuff like that. But I wanted to get this one specifically because it's one of his original outfits that he would wear in his stand-up comedy and stuff. And I wanted to have it. But it was like upwards to like 65 on up. And it kept going up. This specific one. Because they have made like oodles and oodles of other of the different variants and stuff like that. But I didn't care much for them. I didn't care much for those different variants. I just liked it this one. This specific one. And this one was getting scarcer and scarcer to find. But also too harder and harder to attain because of how much people were selling it for and stuff. And I knew right off the bat that at the lowest level was like $60, but the highest I've seen it was like 90, which was like ridiculous. And my brother, once again, got me this for Christmas, and this is awesome. Again, I love it. I had him out of his box at one point, but I kept the box. But then whenever my shelf collapsed the first time, I was like, ugh, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to figure out where I'm going to store all of them. And whenever I found out that I didn't have enough room, I was like, well, out of all the Funko Pops that I want to keep in the box, and since I still had some of them, I put him back in his box. Eventually, one day, I would like to keep him out of his box, but until then, he's just going to be in his box, safe and sound. This one's not really a ride, but it is a attraction-based character. And that is this little droid right here. I honestly do not know the name of this droid. I forgot the name of it. But whenever I first heard about this droid, I thought it was cool. I love the history behind this little guy, both in terms of lore and how it became a character in the parks and stuff. Some of you will recognize this character in some of the Star Wars Galaxy Edge theme parks and stuff like that, you'll recognize this little guy. He's basically a DJ robot, and that's really cool to me. I love the design, I love how it looks, but then again, when it comes to Star Wars, the majority of the droids I love all the droids, and this one in particularly, I love him and stuff like that. And then when I found out that he actually has his own Funko Pop figure, I was like, yeah, I want to get him. And I did. Thankfully, he wasn't too expensive to get. I think whenever I first got him, he was just recently released sometime later. And I was like, oh, okay. And he was still relatively priced well. Like, I want to say I paid like $10 for him. And I was like, cool. I got to have a cool looking droid. You know, again, little bobblehead. It seems like all the Star Wars and Marvels are only bobbleheads, but yet the rest of them are not bobbleheads, which I find to be kind of weird, but I guess in the grand scheme of things, I guess that kind of makes sense. But you know how it is. But yeah, I wanted to get this one, and I just love how he looks. He's so cool looking. Now, I don't have many of them, but I would like to continue collecting this particular line of Funko Pops. This particular line. And that is the gaming Funko Pops. Now, they've got a few characters. I know they've got some of Batman. I know they've got some of some other Marvel character likes. I don't know all of them, but I would like to collect the majority of them. You know, some of the ones that I personally like. For example, this was the first one that I saw, and I was like, I have to have this one. I have to have the Mickey Gamer Funko Pop. I had to have this one because of how cool it looks. You know, they've got another one. Didn't care much for that one, but I do plan on one to get the Minnie. It just makes sense to have both Mickey and Minnie, so that way they're just together and stuff. But I actually like this one. I like the color. I love how it all collides together and stuff like that. The yellow pants, the red shirt, the red hat, and everything. I just love how it looks. It's so cool looking. And then another gamer Funko Pop, and they've got technically like, I want to say 3 in total of this one, but this one I just like because of how natural he looks. How natural he looks as, like, you know, gamer material. And that is Groot. I don't think this is baby Groot. I think this is like teenage Groot, you know, from like, let's see, what movie was that? That would be, technically, Infinity Wars, where he's like a teenager and everything like that. So, yeah, this is like teenage Groot. So not baby Groot, teenage Groot. But he's got like a little bag of chips. He's got like a little, I want to say it's like some kind of clear, some kind of restaurant drink or whatever. It's sipping out of it. And he's got like an Atari controller and everything like that. This is like the most natural gamer-esque look to him. And I just love how it looks. Again, he's a little bobblehead. But I just love how it looks. This just a really cool design look to him. It just stands out so well. We'll go through the list of other favorites of mine because I couldn't get all of them to stand out. So I'll try to name them off. They're the Sword in the Stone set, where it has like the ward pulling the sword. And then you got Merlin and then Archimedes combined together. I love that set. That's really cool. The Three Musketeers, because of the fact that I love the film, Mickey Mouse and the Three Musketeers, I love that film. And when I found out that they made the Funko Pops and everything like that, I was like, I wanted to get them. And I eventually did get all 3 of them. They took a little bit longer to get all 3, but I love that set. I love all 3 of those. That's a really cool set. Again, one of my favorite films, so I wanted to get that one. The 7 Dwarves. As a little kid, I actually remember having figures of the 7 Dwarves. I remember having the figures specifically. So I said to myself, I was like, well, since Funko Pop makes these figures, I want to go ahead and have the 7 Dwarves, you know? It just makes sense to have them again in this lifetime that I'm in. I make it sound like it's those if I've been reincarnated. But I'm talking like generational gaps and stuff like that. Again, whenever I was a kid, I had a figure set of the 7 Dwarves. And now that I'm an adult, I wanted to have a figure set of the 7 Dwarves. And so I've got the Funko Pops. So, yeah, I have the 7 Dwarves Funko Pops. And I love them. They're cool. Will I get Snow White eventually? Any of the Kingdom Hearts, okay? We'll just go straight through it. Any of the Kingdom Hearts. I like the Ultimate Weapon. I was surprised to see that. I was also surprised to see the frickin', monsters, you know. I wish they made the pirates, but they've made the monsters, and I was like, you know what? They never made the monsters for the Bring Our figures and stuff like that, which is one figure set that I would have wanted to have, but they kept pushing out for Toy Story and stuff like that, which I guess makes sense. But it's like, the Monsters Incorporated one, I wanted to see that, and they made it in Funko Pop, so I was like, okay, you made me happy in that area. And then another Disney thing that's my favorite is The Hunchback of Notre Dame, a personal favorite film of mine, and I'm glad they made him into a Funko Pop. And then in terms of like my favorite Kingdom Hearts Funko Pop that I have, is this right here, this Pacific one. You can only get this from like a prize box type thing. I forgot what they technically call it, but it was like a GameStop gift box set type thing. And this was one of them. This was one of the figures that you would technically get with it. And I wanted to get this particular Funko because it's just Sora riding on a horde of Heartlesses. And it is so cool looking. Again, I wanted to keep him out of his box. Ran out of room, decided to leave him in the box. So this is where he stays, inside of his little box. But again, I would keep him out of it just because of how cool it looks. You really don't get a good view of him inside the box, but outside, it'd be really cool to see him and everything like that. I definitely love the Mickey Mouse with the Disney Castle Funko that I've got. That was like one of the most recent ones that I've attained, and I liked that one. I liked the look of it and everything, and I wanted to get that one, especially considering the fact of how reasonably priced it was. At the time, it was only available for like 25 bucks, and I was like, for the price that it is, I'll go ahead and purchase it, pre-order it basically. And it came in, and I'm glad I have him. I wish I could just have him out of his box, because out of the box, it would be so cool looking. But I did hang on to the box, and I didn't have enough room, so I was like, well, you're going to have to stay in the box, sadly. One last thing before we stop counting all of my personal favorite Funko Pops and stuff like that, I do want to go ahead and include this one right here. My personal favorite PlayStation character, okay? We're talking Sony exclusive Funko Pops, you know? I do have the Bloodborne Hunter, I do have Jin from Ghost of Tsushima, but if I have to pick my personal favorite PlayStation one, it would be Sir Daniel Fortescue. Ever since I first finally played through the remake of it and stuff like that, I've been so heavily invested with the brand and stuff like that. And I was hoping that they would do the second one, because it would just make sense just to make the second one, remake it and stuff like that. It would definitely help it and stuff, but they haven't yet, and I still want it so badly. But then whenever I saw they had a Funko Pop of Sir Daniel and his armor and stuff, I was like, I want him, I'm getting him. And so I did. And it's like, Sir Daniel Fortescue, you are now mine. He's like the only PlayStation 1, aside from like Final Fantasy VII, that I like have genuine interest in, you know. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of different RPGs and stuff like that, but when you talk about solely, not including RPGs, but like big-time PlayStation characters and stuff like that, there's not many of them that I could think of right offhand, except for like maybe Metal Gear Solid, but nothing else after that, but mostly just RPGs. But Medieval, really good game, got better in the remake, and I really enjoyed it, and I was like, I want to have a figure or a statue, and then Funko Pop made them, and I'm like, that works. It's just really cool. In terms of Funko that I want to eventually get, I've recently discovered that they have been making the Eevee and the Eeveelutions of the Funko Pops. Like, I know they made Eevee, Jolteon, Flareon, Vaporeon, Espeon, Leafeon. I don't think they've made a Sylveon. I may be wrong. I'll have to look into that even deeper. But recently, they just announced Glaceon. And I was like, wait, if they just make Glaceon, what other Eeveelutions have they got? And obviously they don't have Umbreon, but they do have some of the other ones, and I'm like, okay, Eeveelution it is. I don't have a Pokemon set of Funko Pops and stuff like that, but Eevee would be one of them. Eevee's like my personal favorite Pokemon, so I wouldn't mind having Eevee and the different evolutions of Eevee to go along with it. So if they're going to make all of them, which eventually they will, I definitely would get them. That'd be cool. Another one that I would like to get would be the Ratatouille. Remy Ratatouille, making the Ratatouille itself. The Remy figure itself is kind of bland to me, but then whenever I saw them made a Remy with him making the Ratatouille, I was like, you know what? I want that one as well. Eventually I'll get that one. It'll just be a little bit while longer. Obviously, like I said, I've had to place a pause of collecting Funko Pops because I have no room for them. And until I can make a shelf to where I have room, I can't do anything about that. So unfortunately, they're just gonna have to wait on that one. But yeah, I would like to get Remy eventually. Like I said before about the gaming one, I would love to collect more of the gamer ones. Like I said, I know they made Batman and the Joker. They made a Stitch one that I like. I think there's one other Groot one that I wouldn't mind getting, and then of course Minnie. And then again, I would have to try to look through, but I know they've also made a Deadpool one as well that I wouldn't mind adding as on top of that. I want to say there's more, but I want to get certain ones that I like. Like I don't care much for the Simpsons one, so I'm not a fan of the Simpsons, so I wouldn't get that. Just ones that I wanted to get, you know, some of the ones that are cool, that stands out and makes them unique. I'm sure there's more Funko Pops that I could label that I want to get eventually, but it's hard to say. I haven't looked entirely of the backlog of different Funko Pops, and if I did, I'd be lost in there. I'd be like, oh dear Lord, what have I done? and then I would be discovering the prices, and then I'd be like, oh dear gosh, what have I done? So that I haven't really bothered to look because I didn't want to, because I knew what was going to happen. But in terms of like other Funko Pop ideals, I would eventually love to see them do like Gundams, you know? I've got Gundam figures and stuff like that. I've even got a couple of Gunplas, one that I'm currently wanting to work on eventually, whenever I have the time. But I just haven't got around to it, but eventually I would like to work on them. But I would like to see some Gundam Funko Pops. The fact that we've got so many anime Funko Pops from like Full Metal Alchemist and Cowboy Bebop and stuff, and yet we don't have a single Gundam one. We got Voltron, and then I believe we've also got Power Rangers. So what's the difference between those two and then a Gundam? Are there too many Gundams for you to make? Pick one. Just pick one. Pick either the most standard one, which was like the very first Gundam series, or pick the most recent one, which is like probably the one that's just been going on right now. Pick one. Just do something. I want a freaking Gundam. Jak and Daxter, obviously, they made Ratchet and Clank and Sly. I was surprised to see the Sly Cooper. The Ratchet and Clank just makes sense, considering the fact that it is an IP that has continued on since the PlayStation 5 and stuff like that, so it makes sense for them to continue by making a Funko Pop of Ratchet and Clank. But I was definitely surprised to see a Sly Cooper, and no Ratchet, and no Jak and Daxter. And I'm like, where's my Jak and Daxter? Where's my Jak and Daxter fucking pop? Until I see a Jak and Daxter, there's no sense in me getting the other two, because, quite frankly, I want all three of them there. So it's like, what the frick? Where's my freaking Jak and Daxter? I want him. I want my Jak and Daxter. I think Sam and Max would make for a great Funko Pop, though. I think Sam and Max, by themselves, would be really cool Funko Pop ideals. You know, the brand does kind of exist right now. There's nothing new that's being released at the moment of those things. But in terms of video game and stuff like that that people recognize, I think Sam and Max would make really cool looking Funko Pops. Especially because of the fact that, you know, when you look at them by themselves, they would be good Funko Pops. You know, just shrink them down to size and then boom, you got their Funko Pop form. And I doubt they ever will, but you know, I might as well just throw this out there just to see if they're even remotely interested in it. They've done Kingdom Hearts and everything. Will they do Final Fantasy? It's hard to say. I don't think they will. But I would like for them to do a Final Fantasy set of Funko Pops. I really would. I wouldn't mind seeing, more specifically, like the Final Fantasy Dissidia series of Funko Pops. You know, you have all the main heroes from each game being made into Funko form. I would really love to see that. Will they do that? Only time would tell. I imagine, depending on, I would imagine that they would make the 16th one. You know, the main hero for 16, they would make a Funko Pop for him. I'm kind of surprised they didn't jump on board for 15 whenever it was releasing, you know? Considering how heavily marketed it was when it first got released and stuff like that. How heavily marketed. You think about it, how much marketing campaign it was in and stuff like that. I'm surprised they didn't do a Funko Pop of it. Overall, I definitely can see a future still being made where Funko Pops are still being made to this day. They're still like every once in a while they'll dig into the barrel and see what other random character that's so obscure that no one can think of and stuff like that. They'll pull it out and be like, oh, let's make this. You know, I want to see more obscure reference characters, some that we have never seen in a Funko Pop form. I know there's definitely a Hong Kong Vui one that I wanted to get, but I guarantee you that's also increased in price as well. But that one was cool. I was like, I want to get that one eventually someday. In terms of other ones, there's just so many different Funko Pops that I want to get. But like I said, I've had to put a pause on the collection itself because I have no room for the collection itself. So yeah, there you go. And I think probably one of the reasons why I've collected so many of them was because at the time that they would release them, they're relatively priced well, you know? They're not like freaking 60, 80 buck items. They're like 10 to 15 and depending 30 buck items. So it's not too awful bad on my wallet. So I would argue and say that the collection itself is easy to still collect for. It just depends on when, how, and where you can find them. And if you can find them, they're relatively priced well. I wouldn't say they're overly expensive. It just depends on the one Funko Pop that you want to get, which is kind of like the 1%, if you will, of Funko Pops, you know? The majority of them, they mass produce them so much that it's kind of insane, but I can still see them being made to this day. It does not surprise me one bit to see them continuing on, and especially as someone who does collect different characters and stuff from different franchises that I enjoy and everything like that. It's cool to see them. So anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. What's your Funko Pop collection like? I'm sure yours is probably more ridiculous than mine, and I'm sure some of you probably have more than 100 that I have. I'm actually surprised that I've got 101. I'm actually really surprised on that one. But at any rate though guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. This is BlackCross signing off. Catch you guys later.